Hey guys, it's Rufus. Refragging is easy to understand, but it's an extremely important concept that the vast majority of players just do not follow consistently, and even players in Pro League sometimes don't follow it consistently. If you want to up your game to the next level, then this tip is something that you must follow strictly. Now, most people do not have patience or discipline in this game whatsoever, and we all have friends that run into the building solo, get fragged out, and then leave the team down one player. It's annoying, but this is why we play for each other's refrag. This is what a refrag is, by the way, if you don't know. Say your buck is pushing ahead of you, and while you push behind them, the buck ahead of you gets fragged out by a defender in front of you. You then react off the live intel and push the defender who may have lost health from the previous gunfight, or they may be reloading, but overall they're just like in a disadvantaged position. But basically, it's when you get the kill off the person that killed one of your teammates, say when you're pushing into an area. And if you are pushing at any point as an attacker, then you've got to do your best to ensure that you're able to meet these three criteria I'm about to list out here. 1. You have a drone or cam giving you live intel. Someone needs to be actively directing your every move so that you know where the enemies are in the room that you're pushing into. Because if you're pushing into a room blind or with old info, it's going to be very hard to get a frag most of the time. Now 2, you gotta have a teammate behind you or pushing from another nearby location ready to get your refrag. You just want to make sure that at the very least, the goal of a refrag is just to ensure that your team does not get into a situation where you're down one player. You want to at the very least have a trade when gunfights go out. Ideally you go up one, but sometimes your teammates die, that happens. So if you get a trade, that's better than being down one. But third, you have to make sure that all of the utility is destroyed relevant to where you are pushing. Clear out all the barbed, the Malusi banshees, the goo mines, the ella mines, everything. Don't push into utility because clearing out the utility is just such an easy job, and doing so will make it infinitely easier to win your gunfights. And there's nothing worse than taking a gunfight while being predictable, loud, and slowed down in some barbed wire, or while being pinged by a maestro cam, or in whatever situation it is that you might be disadvantaged from traps that you could have just cleared out beforehand. I hate when I see my teammates die with some frag grenades that I was asking them to clear a shield with. It happens way more often than you would think. Now remember these three criteria. Whenever you push, you want to make sure that you fit these three criteria, because if you're not pushing with intel or utility destroyed or a person ready for your refrag, then you're doing something wrong and you need to reevaluate your decision making. But before I explain further, there are two things that you must remember about refragging. 1, if you're on defense, then you don't need to worry about clearing utility or having cams on the person you're peeking. But if you are peeking someone as a defender, you should have someone else on your team that is ready to get your refrag at least 75% of the time. Now, in some situations, getting a refrag or having someone in position to get your refrag just simply isn't feasible, and I'm going to talk about that more later. But number 2, if you're in a 3 stack, you have 1 drone and 2 entries. If you're in a 2 stack, you have 1 drone and 1 entry. But it's likely that your teammates will be entering if you are pushing with them. So as a solo queue player, I would advise that you play off your teammates and push with them, since pushing alone is pretty difficult and is generally not successful at all. Those were just the 2 quick things I wanted to add in, but moving on, you may notice that in Pro League, many players will take solo gunfights and without anybody else ready to get their refrag. So you might be wondering, why can Pro League players push solo, but I can't? Now there's 2 things to say about this. First of all, just because Pro League players are doing something doesn't mean that they're making the right decision, so to speak, or the best decision, but the occurrence of solo gunfights is inevitable at the end of the day. Say if a player clutches a 1v3, 1v4, or 1v5 during a competitive game or scrim, then that victory is most likely a result of poor positioning and decision making by a losing team. We all get greedy, even at the highest levels of competitive play. My point there being, the pros don't always do the best thing or the right thing. Sometimes they make aggressive plays that are stupid and totally backfire, but it's just about playing the game. Sometimes you just make a bad decision. A good team though, they should never lose a 1v3, 1v4, or 1v5. With that many bodies up, a good team will always set themselves up so that a clutch cannot happen in 99% of scenarios. Every once in a while, shit happens, but most likely that is at the fault of the team that lost because they just did something wrong in terms of positioning. But anyway, going on. Some strats, they may necessitate one or more people being isolated at certain parts of the round, and that's just how Siege works, and you can't have everybody together at all times. So I just want to enunciate that it's important you realize the goal here is to ensure that you are able to get in a position where someone can refrag off you or you can refrag off someone as much as possible, but there are obviously going to be scenarios where that's just not feasible. Now they could be cutting off rotation with some angle where it makes no sense for anybody else to be around them. For example, if you had like a Cali playing back in ruins, why would you have a second person back in ruins? But once again, what's truly important is that you just do your best to minimize the amount of solo gunfights that you have to take. Play for trades and play with your teammates if you can. You can't eliminate solo gunfights entirely, but we are all capable of ensuring that we get in less solo gunfights and that we play smart rather than playing aggressively and greedy. But let's say you get in a situation where you are forced to take a solo gunfight. This could be, say, when the attackers rush site. If there's less than 30 seconds on the clock, you might get pushed or have to react without the help of your teammate. Or maybe you're down one or more players. You got to play a little bit more aggressive, because if you just sit and wait where you are, you're just going to get pummeled by the other team. Or maybe you're getting pushed and you don't have any teammates actively on your back, so you just got to take the gunfight where you are. Or you could be in any of the many situations where getting a refrag or playing off your teammates is just simply impossible. Well, you could feel safe taking a solo gunfight if you feel that your probability of winning the gunfight is extraordinarily high. For example, let's say someone's just running around outside, and you as an attacker, you can see exactly where they are because they're being pinged, they're being detected because they're outside. Then feel free to hunt them down, because if you're too slow, you might lose the opportunity to get that free, easy kill. Because if someone's outside and you're able to hunt them down like that, so long as you hit your shots, they're not going to get you. If they do get you, then you made a pretty major mess up. But I'm going to wrap up the video here, and I'm going to repeat the lesson of this video as one final conclusion. Always do your best to ensure that refrags can happen, because you don't want to take solo gunfights. Get more trades and ensure that there are fewer situations where you're down a man with nothing to show for it. You don't want to solo push. You want to play off live intel. You want to have another player pushing with you. You want to clear all of the utility. You want to get refrags and trades at the very least. You don't want to be down a man because you had some guy solo push. But yeah, that's all I've got to say. This is Rufus heading out. Have a good one, everybody.